YouTube, it's me, Birdie, and I'm here with another video. Before I get into it, I want to apologize for how late I'm uploading this and my next video. I know I kind of missed a week, but I recently, this past Monday, came back to New York. Tuesday I started work, and Wednesday I had work and classes, so I had to kind of get used to being busy all the time. And starting this upcoming week, I'll have 3 classes that kind of combine into 9 hours a week, plus my work, which is about, I want to say, 15 to 20 hours a week. So with that, I'm already down, let's say 29 hours a week. And that's not counting all the prep that I have to do for my classes, which will probably in the beginning take an hour for each class, so another 3 hours. And then I'll have eventually to do homework, which is probably going to take anywhere from an hour to 3 hours per class, so let's say another 9 hours on top of that. So I really need to get used to doing work, classes, and all that stuff. Oh, plus I'm part of a student group for my university, so that's another hour or 2 depending on the week. So I'm going to be getting busy, so I might not be able to film and then edit as well as I want to, but I'm going to try to stick to my 2 videos per week schedule, and hopefully I'll be able to get it out on Sundays and Thursdays like I wanted to. So that aside, let's get into my video, which today I want to discuss my 2019 goals. More specifically, my reading goals, but I am going to start with my more personal goals, so if you want to skip that, hopefully I'll remember to put a time stamp somewhere on the screen about where my actual bookish goals start. But yeah, I'm going to start with personal and professional. So, personal, I want to exercise at least once a week, which I haven't really started in January, so I kind of want to start that in February. Now now that I'm back in New York, I'll be walking a lot more, but I kind of want to do something outside of that. I did start kickboxing last October or something. I want to keep up with that for as long as the Groupon thing that I had purchased is available for, which I think I have not a lot of sessions left. So I want to find a gym after that that's kind of cheap because I don't have a lot of money. But yes, I want to exercise once a week. I want to eat healthier, which that is going to be quite the feat because I am a picky eater and I am lazy, so I don't like cooking. Or I just don't find that the outcome of cooking balances with how much time I spend cooking, because it takes you like hours to cook and like 15 minutes to eat, and the trade-off there is not balanced for me. So I want to get better at cooking, but I'm not setting my hopes up too high. Another personal thing is that I want to do more fun stuff outside, so I don't want to just spend my time reading. So another goal is that I want to visit more bookstores and libraries in New York. I don't want to necessarily buy books at these bookstores, but I at least want to see different bookstores that are in New York and take pictures of them and see how cute they are and that kind of stuff. So that's one way to get myself out of the house or the apartment more. And also it would be nice if I start visiting more museums, but on the one hand, that does cost money. So I have to look into what museums are kind of affiliated with my university, because we do get discounts and some free entry into some museums, so I need to look into that. But yeah, so I want to explore more. As I've been saying, I kind of want to save money. I don't want to spend my money frivolously for a multitude of reasons, some that are way too personal that I don't want to really bring forth on this, because I'll get emotional and I don't want that. But also just to be financially sound. I also want to try to be cleaner and tidier, because I specifically chose to film right over here because you can't see the mess that is my room, and I've only been here for 4 days. So I'm definitely a person who thrives in chaos, but it's not pretty on the eyes, and there are just other things that go along with disorganized room and spaces and unclean spaces that just I don't want to deal with. So I want to try to be cleaner, we'll see how that goes. And then the last personal goal that I want to work on for the year is I had gotten a scrapbook, a huge scrapbook for Christmas from my mom, and I want to work on that throughout the year. I didn't bring it with me here because I don't have a lot of space to work on it, and I want to make it really good. For me, I usually tend to put scrapbooking at the back of my priority list of things that I want to do, and I don't want to make that happen for this one because it did cost a lot of money, and I want this to be a great scrapbook for me. Now on to professional. I kind of want to have a set plan of what I want to do, whether it be like 1 year down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. That might be a little too much planning, but I want to at least know what I want to do and start making steps to achieve that. At the moment, I'm pretty convinced that I want to be a conservator in museums, whether it be with paper materials or what I'm thinking is more so the option archaeological, historical materials. And to do that, for one, I have to get into a conservation program. But in order to get into the conservation program, I have to get X, Y, and Z under my belt, such as I have to have chemistry, so I have to go to some kind of school just to learn the 4 semesters of chemistry that I need, both lecture style and lab work. So I need to start looking into that, which I have kind of, but there might be more options for me in the future once I graduate from my current master's, but I need to start at least looking into it. I need to get a kind of portfolio of 5 art objects that I've created to show that I understand the creation of these items, because that then helps you understand how to preserve them. So I need to get that under my belt and think of what I want to do and take notes on what I'm doing. And then another thing that I have to do for one of the specific programs that I'm looking into is learn a language, specifically either French, Italian, or German, I think was the third one. But I had talked to an advisor in the program, and he suggested I learn Italian because I knew Spanish and I had taken Spanish throughout high school, so I kind of have some knowledge on that. And apparently Italian is not much different, or it's not as big as a leap from Spanish to Italian as it is for like Spanish to French or Spanish to German. So he suggested I learn Italian. So I want to start learning Italian. But I also, which is more of a personal goal, I want to learn Greek because I currently live with my yaya and she really only speaks Greek. So I don't, so I can't really communicate with her very well, and I would like to be able to communicate with her. And just, it would be nice to know the language of my people. So that's another more personal goal. But yeah, that's pretty much all of those goals. So I'll get into the more bookish goals. Now before, though, I get into that, I do have a YouTube specific goal, and that is to hopefully get 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Currently I'm at 74, and I've noticed since I've been more consistently putting 2 videos out a week, I have been gaining at least 1 subscriber each week. So I'm figuring if I keep on doing that for the rest of the year, I should get more than 100 subscribers, but honestly, I'd be totally blown away by having 100 people subscribe to my channel. And yeah, another thing that's kind of connected to my channel is I'd like to get more discussions on my videos and get more views on my videos, but that I really don't know how to achieve, so those are just like wishful thinking stuff that has to do with my channel. But yeah, so the bookish goals I have for 2019. First up, I set my Goodreads goal to 50 books. I set it to that last year, and I surpassed it by 36 books, something like that. I surpassed it. But this year, I don't think I'll have more time because I have my master's, I have my work schedule, which yes, it's not a full-time job, but I still have to spend time away from reading with that. I might start the chemistry program, so that'll then be less time that I can spend reading. And also, I don't want to pressure myself too much. Ideally, I'd love to make it to 100 books at some point in a year, but I don't really think it's feasible to do that this year, especially with how busy I am and the fact that I don't use audiobooks or read on the subway train because I can't do that. So setting at 50 books, probably going to surpass that, but I wanted to make an attainable goal that is very possible. So that's why it's that low. I also want to complete 5 series. The past 2 years I've started a whole bunch of series because I had the freedom to kind of read more than I had been able to do in my undergraduate, so I started picking up all the series that were talked about throughout BookTube during my time in undergrad. And even though I started a lot, I did not finish a lot. So I know there's a couple of series that I would like to actually finish. I would also like to reread 2 series. This will probably be Percy Jackson because I'm trash for rereading Percy Jackson, and probably either Dan Brown, The Diviners, or Lord of the Rings, or Eragon. So I have 4 choices for the second one, but honestly I just want to reread 2 series. I also kind of want to start 2 new series and hopefully finish them within the same year. I would actually really like to just binge an entire series in a short period of time, so that way I don't forget what's happened in the earlier books. So that's another thing that I would like to do. I would like to read 6 dystopians throughout the year, and with this I would like to make a dystopian video each month. I think I have this planned out where it's going to be the second to last video for each month. So I want to have a bigger focus on dystopians because I do enjoy reading them, and I have a lot to say about the whole dystopian topic, both because of my work on it during my undergrad dissertation, and just there's a whole philosophical kind of aspect to dystopians that lends itself to being able to be discussed very easily. So yeah, so I want to read 6 dystopians and make a video on dystopians each month. I would also like to read 6 classics, and I don't have like a specific list, so a lot of the dystopians might fall into this category as well, but I do want to read more classics. Last year I read a lot of Jane Austen. I would like to finish her catalog of works. There's also Charles Dickens. I really loved his Great Expectations book, and I would like to read more from him. And there's just a whole bunch of like different classics that I would like to get to, so I'd like to get at them some point this year. I also have some goals that I kind of realized after doing my 2018 statistics. So first up, I want to read 30,000 pages by the end of the year. I think I made it to 27,000 last year, or around 27,000, because I couldn't figure out how many pages were in the audiobooks that I had or not audiobooks, ebooks that I had read. So I think I was maybe close to 28,000. So I think 30,000 is doable, especially since already I've read a lot of bigger books, and if I read more bigger books and also just more books in general, I should hopefully be able to achieve that. But I'm not going to pressure myself and like plan, oh, I'm going to read X number of books with X number of pages so that way I can achieve that goal. This is more something that if it's achieved, that's great. If not, I want to get as close as possible to that number. I also want to increase the number of books that I read that are published before the 2000s. Last year I definitely read the majority of books from 2000s to the 2010s, and a lot of them being more recent releases, and I don't want to forget backlist books. And again, that'll probably be fulfilled by the number of classics I read I read and the number of dystopians I read. I also want to have a better balance between male and female. I think for last year it was kind of close to 50-50, and I definitely want to keep it that way. I do not want to favor one sex of the author over the other. I just want it to be even. Same with owned versus library. I want there to be a better balance. I think last year I read quite a bit more books from the library, and even though that's great because I want to support using libraries, I also own a lot of books that are still unread, and I would like to get that down a little bit more. But again, that's not something that I'm going to force myself to make sure is even. I want it to happen naturally and not stress about it. And then I also want to have a balance of the reading level, so I want to read similar amounts of middle grade / children's, young adult, and adult. New adult, I don't really care if it's as balanced as the other, or as much as the other ones, because that's kind of a newer kind of level for reading, and I don't want to force myself to read things that I'm not necessarily interested in just to fulfill this balance of the reading level. So again, it's kind of more of a organic, natural thing rather than I'm gonna force myself to read the same number of each reading level. And then the last thing on this for this video is I have 19 books that I want to get to this year. So first up is Secret Machines: A Fire Within by Tom DeLonge and A.J. Hartley. I read the first book in 2018. It was my favorite, so I definitely want to get to the sequel. Next, I want to read God's Grave by Jay Kristoff. Again, I read Nevernight in 2018, and I want to read the sequel. A lot of these first books are sequels to books I read in 2018 or previously. Then I have a whole bunch of books that I'm just interested in. Then there's some authors that I want to get to, and then there's some books that I do not own that I want to read. So third is P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. I really enjoyed the first book and the movie, and I know the second movie is coming out sometime this year, so I want to read the second book before the movie comes out. I also want to read The Beauty of Darkness by Mary E. Pearson. I read the first 2 books in this series and really enjoyed them, but I haven't gotten around to the third book yet, and I really want to. And I really hope I don't have to reread the first 2 books. I mean, I'd be fine with it, but I'd rather just finish the series off and end it. And also she has another book that's set in this world that is not following the same characters, so I want to get to that as well. I also want to read the second book in George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series, and I'd hope to get to A Clash of Kings at the very least. Ideally, if I can read more of his series, that would be awesome, but they're huge and kind of slow going, especially with how busy I am. So I'm gonna at least read the second book. Now I'm getting into books that are more standalone-y that I own. So first up, I want to read The Storm Runner by J.C. Cervantes. This is the second book in Rick Riordan's Presents publishing sector thing, and I would love to get into all of those. There are at least 2 more coming out this year. I know Dragon Pearl already came out in January, and I'd love to get to that. And then there's another one I think coming out later in the year, and I would just love to keep up with the Rick Riordan's Presents, but as it stands, The Storm Runner is something I want to get to because it came out in 2018 and I'd like to read it. Next we have Republic by Plato. This is something where I've read parts of it for my undergrad, for my classical civilizations classes, but I'd love to read it in its entirety because another book on this list, The Just City by Joe Walton, is kind of based on Plato's Republic, so I'd want to read the original before I get to that. And again, my next one would be The Just City by Joe Walton. Now, the next couple of books on this list are more so that I want to read books by these authors. So first up, I'd like to read at least one book by Brandon Sanderson. I read Elantris last year, really enjoyed it, and I want to get more into his books, especially his Cosmere related books. So again, I'd at least want to read one, but if I can get to his entire Mistborn trilogy, which is the next books by him that I want to get to, if I can get to all three, that would be amazing. But I at least want to get to one. Same with Robin Hobb. I read in 2018 her first two books in her Farseer trilogy, so I'd like to at least read one more, finish out that trilogy, but ideally I'd like to at least start one of her other Realm of the Elderlings trilogies as well. Then I want to read Agatha Christie. I've pretty much read one Agatha Christie book for the past 2 years, and I kind of want to keep that going and up it. So I'd hopefully like to read 4 Agatha Christie books, and for her books I've been reading them in publication order. Same thing with Stephen King. I've been reading at least one of his books for the past 2 years. Well, actually no, 3 years I've been doing it. But I want to continue this, and again I want to read it in publication order, and I want to at least get to 3 this year, because just limiting it to 1 around October has kind of been sad, because I do really like both Stephen King and Agatha Christie's writing styles, and I want to read more of their books. So next on this list is something that I had talked about before. I want to finish Jane Austen's catalog of books. I only have 2 more complete books to read by her, and that's Persuasion and Lady Susan. So I'd like to get those out of the way. And then finally, for authors, I'd like to read Libba Bray, and I would at least like to finish her Gemma Doyle series. Again, I read the first book in 2018 and I enjoyed it, but I never picked up the rest of the books in the series. So I want to get to that and finish it at the very least. I'd love to read more Libba Bray because, again, she is an author that I like, her writing style and everything. Now the next one is a specific genre. I kind of touched upon it before, but I added it into this list as well. I want to read at least 4 dystopians. 6 is the ideal. If I get to that, I will be extremely happy, but if I get to 4, so 1 each season, that would be just as great. And speaking of dystopians, on the Wikipedia kind of list of dystopian literature, which is kind of how I've been looking for books that I kind of want to prioritize, the first technical dystopian on that list is Gulliver's Travel by Jonathan Swift. So I definitely want to get to that because I'd like, if possible, to read the dystopians in publication order, or like in the order that they've come out, which is publication order, just so I can see how the genre kind of transformed to what we kind of iconically know through George Orwell's 1984 or his Animal Farm or Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. I want to see how we got to that kind of quintessential dystopian genre. So yeah, I definitely want to read that. And then I also, which I plan on doing for March, I want to read books connected to Greece. That whether it be ancient Greek authors, more modern Greek authors, books that are just set or have an inspiration from Greece, or are nonfiction books about Greece. And I want to do it for March because that's their Independence Month. So I'd love to get a whole bunch of recommendations out for that month so I can spread the love for my heritage with books. And then the last 2 books are just books that I'm kind of interested in but do not at the moment own. So the first one is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This has been getting a lot of buzz on BookTube, but also with its connection to the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which kind of have similar-ish titles, but they're completely different. And out of the 2, The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle is more appealing to me because it is a mystery that kind of seems reminiscent of Agatha Christie's, but with a sci-fi twist. So I'm really interested in reading that. And then lastly on this list is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. And this is a fantasy that is set in and inspired by Egypt, and I just love that, and I would love to read more fantasy books that are not European medieval set. So I feel like that would be a great way to start. And also, when it first came out and people started talking about it on BookTube, that was one of the ones where I was like, yes, that one I definitely want to read despite any hype that might be surrounding it, which there really hasn't been too much hype on that book. So that both makes me happy and excited to read it, but also kind of nervous, like why were people talking about this book and stopped it suddenly. So yeah, this is a long video. Hopefully I'll edit it quickly and be able to post it soon. But these are all my goals, both bookish and non-bookish, for 2019. Hopefully I'll be able to achieve the majority of them. But at least I'll try to get close to achieving them. And that's all I can ask for. But what are your 2019 bookish and non-bookish goals? I'd love to know. Maybe you'll inspire me to start to put more things on this list, even though I don't need a lot more to worry myself about achieving. But I find different goals that people have interesting and also inspiring. So I would love to know what your goals are for 2019. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.